In this video today guys, I will be showcasing the best competitive settings in Fortnite Chapter 4 Season 2 that'll help you find the best stretched resolution, the best colourblind mode, the best reticle settings, the best HUD settings, and so much more. As well as that, I'll also showcase some Windows settings that'll give you a huge FPS boost, and some Nvidia settings that'll give you the lowest input delay. So if the video does help out, please drop a like on it, please sub to the channel, and please use my code in the item shop or when getting that brand new battle pass. Now let's get straight into the video. Starting off in the video settings, for windowed mode you want to make sure this is on full screen for more FPS and lower latency. For resolution, this is actually personal choice. If you've got 1920 by 1080 the default res, this will give you the most FOV possible as well as the best quality, and most pros are actually using it. But if you actually use a stretched res, this will give you more FPS, it'll give you much bigger looking player models, but you'll also get a disadvantage, which is low quality textures as well as less FOV while using. So if you are wanting to use a stretched res, here are a few great ones on screen, and if you want to know how to set it up, be sure to check out this tutorial in the description below. As for VSync, you want to make sure this is turned off to get better performance and less input delay. Frame rate limit, most say that you should match your monitor's hertz, so say if you've got a 144 hertz monitor, you should use 144 FPS in game, but I myself actually recommend upping it by 1 as this feels really smooth. Alternatively as well, you could just use unlimited as that feels really smooth too, in my personal opinion. Rendering mode, I highly recommend that you guys use performance mode as this will give you the most FPS possible as it does lower the textures. Alternatively, you can use DirectX 12 or 11, but these will obviously make the game look a lot better and you will not get as much FPS as you would on performance mode, obviously because of the visual difference. Brightness, this is personal preference. Here's what it looks like on the default brightness, which is 100%. Here's what it looks like on high brightness, which is 150%. And then here's what it looks like on low brightness, which is 50%. But out of all them right there guys, I can safely say that 100% is the best this season in my opinion. Use it in the face contrast, this really doesn't matter because all it does is actually change the look of your menu, which a lot of people don't really care about. Colorblind mode, this is another personal preference. For off, here's what it looks like in game. For Deuteranope, here's what that looks like in game. As you can see, it is a lot darker the game. For Protanope, here's what that looks like in game. You can see that it does change the tones of the colours slightly. And then for Tritanope, this is what it looks like in game. You can see here that it does actually brighten the game quite a bit. But I think the personal favourite this season is actually Deuteranope on the strength number 5. You see a lot of pros like Mongrel and many others using this colourblind mode this season, but I myself personally prefer to have it off completely as I think it looks really good in game right now. Motion blur, you definitely want to have that turned off in game because if you don't, it will add motion blur and you do not want motion blur. For the graphics quality options right here, I recommend turning these basically all to low, with a few exceptions, but as you can see, just go ahead, turn them all to low guys right now. But the exceptions right here, the first one is actually view distance. The reason some people change this is because objects will actually appear more clearer in game the higher you have the view distance, which is quite interesting. And then the other exception is textures. A lot of people choose to up the textures, but it is dependent on your gaming PC and what graphics card you have. The better PC and graphics card you've got, the higher you might want to put your textures. May it be medium, high, or epic. For most of you, it's probably medium. That's probably the best one, but I'll try it out because you could get lower input delay. But if you do want the most FPS possible, I do recommend having this on low. Oh, by the way, it's very important that you guys have high resolution textures and high resolution texture reminders turned off because you will actually get better FPS and you will save a ton of storage space. As for advanced graphics, show FPS can be on or off, it's personal preference. Use GPU crash bugging, this wants to be turned off. Latency markers, this also wants to be turned off. As for Nvidia reflex low latency, this is one that can actually reduce your input delay, and depending on what gaming PC you have, I would recommend having this on if you have a medium to high end PC. Or if you've got a high-end PC or ultra high-end PC, try using it on plus boost because using either one of these could lower your input delay drastically. But if you guys do want the most FPS possible, you might want to actually turn it off. However, these options right here, either one of these two, can lower your input delay like big time. I myself don't like to use on plus boost because I do get some FPS drops, so I found that on works really well for me, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and use. After you've done that, it's really important that after customizing all of these video settings, you apply Y and then restart the game as the menu shows up right here. After restarting, you'll notice that the new performance mode is in action, and you'll actually see some new settings, or a lot less settings, sorry. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see meshes too. Low meshes make the game look like this on screen and provide you with more FPS and less input delay, whereas with high meshes, these look like this in game, and you can see they do look a lot better, but they don't provide as much of a benefit as low meshes do. There's also super low textures that not a lot of people know about, and they look like this on screen. But if you want to know how to get these, it's important that you follow my tutorial that I'll have a link to in the description of this video. Next up, we've got game options. Now, as most of these are obvious, I'm going to go over a few that are worth mentioning. Firstly, we've got matchmaking region. Make sure that this is set to your local region so you get the lowest ping possible. As for movement, under mantle activation, if you use the hold forward option, this allows you to jump and hold forward to get onto a ledge, whereas if you use the hold jump option, this allows you to simply hold jump to get onto a ledge. Auto pick up weapons, some pros actually choose to have this turned on as they can pick up items quicker when landing, but some do choose to have it turned off as it can be quite annoying. Disable pre-edits. If you have the option turned off, you cannot do this on screen, and if you have the option turned on, you can do this on screen, so it's up to you for this one. Confirm edit on release. This is a highly debated one, whether you should have it off or turned on, and to find out what each one does and a better explanation, I recommend checking out this video I made about it on screen right now. And as for the rest of the game options right here, these are personal preference, to be honest, except replays actually. A lot of people choose to have these turned off, but I myself, for recording purposes, I do have them turned on, but they will actually lower your FPS if you do turn them off. Next, we've got the HUD options, and firstly, we've got reticle and damage feedback. For the reticle setting, when you have it turned on, you can see your crosshair. When you have it turned off, you cannot see your crosshair. Reticle ammo indicator, when you have this turned on, it shows how much remains in the clip, whereas if you have this turned off, you cannot see how much remains in the clip. Damage numbers, cumulative will auto stack the numbers for you, basically do math for you, whereas list will manually list them all out, so you have to do the math yourself. Reticle damage feedback, hit and icons will show a hit marker and icon damage. Hit only will just show the hit marker in itself, and off will show nothing. And then damage number scale will show the size of the damage numbers. The higher this percentage is, the bigger they'll be in game. And as for the rest of the HUD options right here, these are the best settings in my opinion for the cleanest looking UI. As you can see before, it looks very messy and there's just so much in the way that can be very distracting, whereas if you apply these settings, you'll see it looks way cleaner than before. Next is touch and motion. Now unfortunately I don't play with a controller, so I don't know the best settings. However, I can tell you guys right now that someone in the comments will put the best touch and motion settings, so be sure to check the comments of this video. Next, we've got mouse and keyboard sensitivities. Now starting off with the X and Y sense, most pros choose to have this on anything between 6.5% and 10% using a 800 mouse DPI, which actually equals to a medium sense. This sense right here is a perfect balance between getting great mechanics and great aim, as it is an overall medium sense. And to find out if you've got a medium sense, you can check out gamesettings.com. Under the eDPI calculator, just put in your current sense and you'll find out what it is. I recommend definitely using a medium sense if you can. As for the targeting sense or ADS sense, most pros use anything between a low 30% and a high 80%. I don't really see them going too much over that. And for the scope sensitivity, I see people using as low as 80% to a maxed out 100% for this one. Also, for maximum mouse accuracy, I highly recommend using a Windows mouse sense of 6 out of 11, which is the default one, as well as having the enhanced pointer precision unchecked, as what this does is it disables mouse acceleration, and you definitely don't want to use that. As for the keyboard movement, I wouldn't recommend using any third-party applications because you can see there's one in the game itself. Just turn on use custom diagonals, make sure that's enabled right there, and then these settings right here are the best ones. You want to have forward diagonal angle on 60%, strafe angle on 76%, and backward diagonal on 135%. These settings right here will give you the best keyboard movement. Next up, we've got controller options, and again, unfortunately, I do not use a controller, so I don't know the best sensitivities, but you guys can either check the comments of this video, as someone usually does put the best controller options, or alternatively, you can go and check out what the pros are using right now, like the best controller players, and get inspiration from them, then use some of the settings and adjust them to yourself for the best comfortability and preference for you. Next up, we've got the best audio settings, and under volume, these are all personal preference. However, when it comes down to sound quality, I myself prefer having high because I can hear more things, but if you actually have this turned on, it will lower your FPS, so a lot of people do want the FPS boost and put it on low. I myself, I do like high though, and I can manage it, or my PC can manage it. For 3D headphones, I usually have this turned off, but this season it actually fixes the audio issues and it actually sounds really good. I think it was like a thing to have this turned off in previous seasons, but this time I actually like how it sounds, and it does fix the glitchy audio right now in Chapter 4 Season 2. And finally as well, you want to make sure that Visualize Sound Effects is turned on, as this will give you a huge advantage in game, as you'll be able to make out footsteps more accurately, as it literally shows it on the top, and loads of pros are using it this season. Next up, we've got keybinds. Now for the best keybinds, I recommend trying a few different ones out, but if you do have a mouse with mouse buttons on either side, I'd recommend trying out putting the wall on mouse button 5, which is the first one, and then the stairs on mouse button 4, which is the second one. If not, guys, check out what the pros are using over at gamesettings.com and take inspiration from their settings, and then obviously apply that, make your own adjustments, and see which ones are the most optimal and the most comfortable for yourself. Next, we've got the best controller keybinds. Now for this, again, you're going to have to check out what the pros are using, guys, and get inspiration, because I myself do not use a controller, but if I was to use a controller, I would definitely check out what the pros are using and take inspiration from their keybinds. And moving on, finally, we've got account and privacy, and for this, guys, I recommend copying all of my settings right here to get a slight FPS boost, as some of these can actually affect your FPS and ping slightly, so make sure you just copy my settings right here. Next up, we've got the best Windows settings. Now on your desktop, under the gaming section, you want to make sure that game mode is enabled, as this will give you a huge FPS boost. Also make sure hardware accelerated GPU scheduling is enabled with the Fortnite app selected below it, as what this will do is it will reduce your input delay. And finally, make sure that under appearance and performance, you choose to use the best settings for performance to get another slight FPS boost. There are some more Windows optimizations you can choose to do, but to find those, I recommend checking out this tutorial on screen where I covered all of them in depth. I'll leave a link in the description below. Next up, we've got the best Nvidia settings. Now for drivers, you can actually install the latest one on the GeForce Experience application, which is on screen right here, or alternatively you can use one of these popular Nvidia drivers that pros use for the lowest input delay. You can see the list is on screen right here. In addition to that, I recommend copying all of these Nvidia settings on screen right here, as these will give you the most FPS and lowest amount of input delay. And if you guys are curious of what each setting does, be sure to check out my explanation video on screen right here as well. I'll leave that in the description below. But that right there, guys, was the best Fortnite competitive settings in Chapter 4 Season 2. If the video helped out, be sure to drop a like on it, be sure to drop a sub on the channel, and on top of that, be sure to use my code in the item shop, and as well as when you do pick up that brand new battle pass, as that'd help me out a ton. Catch us in the next one. Peace.